Hey, Kathy. I am so happy to see you on our little flat screens that we get to see each other on all the time.
It's our online office, which is all the time.
It
I know.
is. It is. It's a weird, I don't know, for those of us that are older and we worked in offices, I think it's kind of a weird, I don't know. I would love to work in an office a couple days a week and then actually get to see you in person. I guess then we'd
Yeah.
also have to live in the same city, but eh.
We'd have to live in the same city, which would be such a perk. Because when we get together, it's truly amazing just having, in a way, this kind of connects with what we're talking about. Just connecting with other people in real life is just such a different thing than being on Zoom.
Yeah,
Although it's nice to see you often on Zoom, but I don't know.
I know.
I'd rather be in person.
I know. Well, and if you're watching the video, I am drinking coffee. We've talked about this before. I think I've talked about it before where it's like I have to have 2 cups of coffee a day. Otherwise, I get a horrible headache, which this makes me really feel for our kids because then if I have it now, which is 1:15 in the afternoon, I may be wide awake tonight when I probably won't because we're moving and I'm tired enough. I'm probably going to fall asleep. But anyway, I had to make a cup of coffee and I didn't have time to drink it all before we got on this. So if you're watching us on YouTube, I'm drinking coffee. That's just the way it
Yeah.
is.
No apologies for that. And if you don't know about Brenda, besides her being a data nerd, she's a big coffee snob too, as I discovered.
I don't
Which
think
I
I'm a
appreciate.
coffee snob.
No, you in a good way. I don't. What's a better way? You're a coffee connoisseur. I shouldn't call you a snob. You're a coffee connoisseur. You know a good cup of coffee. Obviously, being from
Yeah.
Seattle, you should know a good cup of coffee. I appreciate that about you because I was not so much of a coffee connoisseur before I met you. And then I appreciate that about you. I love it.
Well, it's important. And I was even later than I was
Yeah.
supposed to be for this because people are like, what does this have to do anything with kids and addiction? It does not. It just means that you're a human and sometimes you just have to talk about human things. I decided to get we had this old grinder. And so I decided to get like a new nice grinder, which I love, by the way, like how a coffee grinder can bring me so much joy. I have no idea, but it's really good. And so then I get the beans and then I grind it. So I go downstairs, I'm running because I know you're waiting on the call. And there is not one scoop of coffee in my little coffee container. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to grind coffee. It's one of the simple pleasures of life.
Right. That's right. It's your self-care practice. We're going to talk about self-care.
Yes.
That's definitely a good self-care practice. And just having the ritual of coffee, I don't know. I think if it brings you joy, why not?
Exactly. Although I don't like the whole thing about getting a headache if I don't have it. I think that might be slightly problematic, but it's a problem I'm willing to deal with for now. So
Yes, for sure.
I thought before we dive in, we have so many new listeners. I thought it might be fun for them to hear how the two of us got connected and hooked up to do this crazy thing that we do.
I would love that. I would love that. And welcome to all of our new listeners. I think it's pretty cool. And I started, really, when it came down to it, I met you, first of all, online because my kids had I'm trying to think, they had been to Wilderness, but one of my friends that I met through there, who's also a mom in our community from a while ago, and she sent me this link and said, you should really start listening to this podcast and maybe join the community. And I thought, all right, why not? And I remember meeting you and thinking, oh, this is so lovely. This is such a nice space because, as we know, there are a lot of spaces out there for parents or mothers in particular. I'm not going to mention names of these spaces because they tend to be a little negative, I felt personally. And that was really hard because I knew my reality after my kids went to Wilderness. I was living in I didn't really understand what was going on, I guess. And so anyway, to come to this really pretty space that felt so much love and support, and your podcast was so nice. And then we got to meet in person because I decided to be a little risky and go on the retreat.
The first ever retreat in 2021. like still in COVID craziness.
Total COVID craziness. And that plays a part. And I remember even telling my husband, I'm like, hey, I really want to go on this retreat with Brenda. And he's like, okay. And our sons both lived in San Diego at
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah. We figured
You
that
remember
out.
that?
Yeah.
We figured that out.
Same school,
And
same community college.
same school,
Yeah.
everything. So, what, of course, would a parent of young adults do but get them together for a coffee date with us? And that was fun. And we showed up and we were wearing the exact same thing, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
I
Head to
mean,
toe, same outfit.
it's great. It was great. Yes.
Yeah. And I was like 3 days past my COVID quarantine. And this
Oh
was
my God.
pre-vaccine, right? This was end of
Mhm.
2021. So I had had it bad. And I'd asked you, I think a couple weeks before the retreat, I was like, that Cathy lady seems like she really has it together. I wonder if she would, I wonder if she would be willing to help me out. Cause I was in that phase where you have zero energy. And
Oh,
so I remember
yeah.
asking you like, hey, do you think if I'm really tired at the retreat, would you mind helping out? And you were like, sure. And boy, did you help out because I was exhausted. I just remember we went to Old Town. We had the first retreat in San Diego. We went to Old Town one night just for fun. And I remember
Mhm.
just sitting on a bench and watching you all walk around and have so much fun. And I was like, I cannot even stand up right now. I'm so tired.
That was such a fun time, but also I remember you being so tired, feeling so bad for you too. But
Yeah.
I'm also super grateful because that's kind of when our partnership started. And
Mm-hmm.
it's really special because, gosh, I mean, to think like even in the first few years that we really knew each other, we had maybe gotten together 5 times. I mean, it was crazy, hardly any time at all.
Yeah.
But we just hit it off so well. There was this kindred spirit to the friendship, and it was really neat. And of course, we had a common mission that we really wanted to help others.
Yes. Yes. So, anyway, if you're new here, that is how Cathy and I came together.
That's right.
If you're an OG listener, you might already know that story, or you might not, because I don't know. We haven't really talked
That's
about it
right.
much on the podcast. We talk about it a lot in the community,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. I also wanted to make sure and mention that we've sort of switched stuff up lately, which is always good. And we started a new free trial membership. And it is a free 2-week trial. So you can come into the stream. If you're a mom or female caregiver, you can hang out with us. You can come to one of my coaching sessions. You can come to one of Cathy's welcome calls and just check us out. See if we're your kind of people. It's great.
Definitely. Definitely come and partake. I mean, I think, oh my gosh, Brenda, I was on a call this morning actually, and I heard just lots of great things about your coaching call, which
Mm.
is I want to share with people too when they come in. Yes, I would love to have a call with you, kind of really show you around our beautiful space and really cater things to what you're specifically going through. But the opportunity just to have so much coaching within our community is amazing. I mean, really from where the stream started to where it is now is just so cool. And there's coaching available at every turn, despite the fact you can also get your own private coach if you really wanted to
Oh.
do that too. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I think the way we have it organized in the calendars that there is a coaching opportunity every week, whether that's with me or with you or Dina, Dr. Wes or Raleigh. So there's lots of opportunities. And we do that for a very specific reason because we know when you come in and this is all either maybe it's brand new to you or maybe you're 7 years in and you're
Mhm.
like, where do I even start? It's just so overwhelming. So that's why we do a lot of coaching to give you ideas about, okay, if this is where you are, here is something to try this week. And we're going to actually talk about that today on the episode as well, because you got to have some quick wins, right? You just have to start feeling like something's going to change. And the more you can make that change directed from you, the better off everyone's going to be. Because otherwise, what you end up doing is just reacting to all the chaos that's going on in your house. And then that doesn't serve anybody well.
It really doesn't. And it seems kind of counterintuitive too, right? That you need to change. You have a little bit of a change and that really affects all those around you. But you think about it and what we're going to talk about when your kids are doing a little better, you feel a little better, right? So it's the opposite. They see how you are in your relationship with them and others, and anyway, we're going to talk a lot about that. So
Yeah.
I'm excited about the podcast today. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah. If you want to do the trial, just go to hopestreamcommunity.org and then the /try, TRY. And that will get you to the page where you can sign up for those free 2 weeks. Definitely take advantage of the welcome call with Cathy, and all that just comes to you automatically. Like, we have it really set up to guide you exactly through the first couple of weeks because we know that it can be tricky. So hopestreamcommunity.org. That is a long URL. I didn't really think about that when we were setting that up. But anyway, that's just the way it is. So go there and we would love to offer you those free 2 weeks. You don't even have to put in a credit card. We were sitting around talking about this. This is just another tangent. Sorry, this is what you get when Cathy and I do episodes together. You get tangents. But we were sitting around talking about this trial, and I think we both said, like, oh my gosh, when I see something that I want to do, and then I get halfway through the process, and then I have to put in my credit card, it makes me so mad. I'm like, that does not feel like a free trial.
It's so true. It's so true. And you're not always sure what you're going to get when you put in your credit card too.
Mm-hmm.
So I love with these free 2 weeks on the stream, you have access to pretty much everything, and definitely all the things that are so helpful. And I think I will say that most folks that are there and do it for the full 2 weeks decide this is something that they want to do. And you don't have to commit for a year either. You can do it for a month or 2 months and see. We always encourage everyone to at least join some kind of live event. And if you're new and you don't feel comfortable being in a Zoom room with your audio and video on, that's okay. You can have them off until you feel comfortable and ready to participate if that's what you'd like to do.
Yeah.
So there's so many ways to do it. But I wish I had this when we were in the thick of it.
I know. I was texting with Enzo yesterday. I don't even know what we were texting about, but I asked him if he wanted to go to a conference or something. And he said, yeah, that would be great. I learned a lot last year. And I said, can you imagine if we would have known all of this 11 years ago? And he was like, yeah, things would have been really different. I'm like, well, that's the understatement of the year.
No kidding. For all of us, right?
Yeah.
And also, sometimes that's our path. I really do feel that I was talking actually to someone the other day too about my son's path in college and what that was like. And would it have been better had he stayed home and not gone and everything else? But I realized I needed him to do that because I think I needed to get to the point, as sad as that sounds, I needed to get to that point of realizing this is really serious and what I needed to do for myself, so his growth was just as much for my growth too. So it's that little gift you get in recovery, which is really tough. And if you're in the thick of it right now, I get it, that it's really hard to see, like you said, Brenda, 11 years post this today,
Yeah.
That is, you hope you can get there. And I think there are just so many ways to get there today than there were 11 years ago. We know so much more about this, right?
Oh, so much more. And I want to be very clear also that, and I was telling this to some friends this past weekend, if I had known all the stuff that I know now about craft and invitation to change and motivational interviewing and self-compassion, my experience through my son's struggles would have been different. I cannot say that his experience would have been any different. There's just no way to predict that, right? Do I think potentially it could have been better for him, maybe, but he was hell-bent on doing what he was gonna do. And so I think it's important to mention that because what we're not selling here is do these things and your kid is not gonna have, your kid's gonna stop using substances and they're gonna resolve their mental health.
Right.
Not at all. What we're saying is here are a set of tools, strategies, approaches, behaviors that will change you and likely, most likely, change the people around you, including your child who is struggling. And that may change their trajectory. It may shorten it. It may make it less intense. It may, whatever. Like, I definitely think we could have had better communication because I was just a yeller. Like, I just figured I could yell my son out of addiction.
Oh, yeah.
Spoiler alert, that doesn't work. So if you're trying that method, you can skip it. Like, does not work. So I just never want anybody to think like, oh, if I do all these things, it's going to equal my child not using substances because they are the only ones who can decide that. You can influence it. Does that make sense? I just want to be very clear about that.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think what we're saying too is it really matters who you are as a parent, right? So Enzo probably didn't, just like my kids, did not want to come to me. I was a sobbing mess a lot of the time. I was also yelling a lot.
Yeah.
Did I seem like a safe person to come to? Even if they had that little break of maybe I want to change? Probably not, right? Because a lot of how I interacted with my kids was punitive. I was incredibly shaming at them, all those things. I also didn't really care about myself as much, right? Because I was always pointing out,
Yeah.
thinking I could love them out of it. I could scream them out of it. I could shame them out of it.
We tried hard,
Now,
all the things, by the way.
oh, I mean, it's for sure. And I think what I've realized through this whole thing is that what really made a difference was when I became more approachable because I had to do a lot of work on myself.
Yeah.
I had to calm the voices in my head I had to change my reactivity and everything else. And it took time. It definitely took time. And those were skills I had to learn and do a lot of practice with my husband or even act with people when I was driving a car, whatever it was, right? I had to like really question myself a lot on why I was thinking things, why I was feeling things. And anyway, we're going to go into all of that. And I do think just changing that about yourself can help change your kid.
Hey friend, if you've ever finished an episode of Hope Stream and thought, but what do I actually do when they come home tonight? That is what the stream was built for. The stream is a private online membership for moms who are navigating all the same difficult things you are. Like those nights when your kiddo comes home at 2 a.m. and you don't know what to do and things are escalating. It's where knowing about things like craft and the invitation to change become real and you start actually using it. And right now you can try it free for 2 weeks. No credit card required and no long-term commitment. There's nothing to cancel if you decide it isn't for you. What you will have is full access to our special community and the women who have been or are in your exact kitchen situation. They've had those difficult conversations. Even on your busiest, hardest weeks, there is something here that fits for you. You can engage as little or as much as you want, and of course, you get to show up in the way that feels best for you. Go to hopestreamcommunity.org/try to get that free 2-week offer, and I will see you inside. Okay, let's get back to the show. Yes. Well, that is a perfect segue to what we are going to talk about. And as we were preparing for this, I think we were both just feeling so much compassion for the parents who this is going to resonate with, because we both lived in this space, I think. And I think it's the natural space to start out in because you're terrified that your kid's doing the things that they are. There's both the like near term fear because maybe they're drinking and driving, or they're under the influence of substances and driving, or hanging around with dangerous people. So you have this weird combination of the fear of today, but then also this long-term ambiguous fear of the future of, are they ever going to be independent? Are they ever going to be healthy, have a relationship, have children if that's what they want? All those things. So it's a weird kind of stew of emotions, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird stew of emotions, and it really impacts how we parent our kids, right?
Yeah.
I remember very well hearing that first term, "Are you parenting out of fear?"
Mm-hmm. And to tell you the truth,
1,000%.
I didn't even really recognize what that meant.
Oh, really?
No, I
Yeah.
really didn't.
Yeah.
All I knew was I was just doing the best that I could. And
Yeah.
it wasn't until I think one of Enzo's therapists kind of talked me through what that meant, like, are you doing this? Are you doing that? Like I don't know if in those days you could check people's locations. This was like 2013 to 17. You probably could. I just didn't know it. But I'd be driving around looking for his drug dealer, and I would be trying to get him home, keep him home, all the things, and make decisions because I was so afraid. So anyway, just in case anybody's like, well, what does that mean, parenting out of fear? I didn't really understand it either. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what we wanted to talk about today is this idea of emotional sturdiness and the magic of it, because this is something that you can do today. And we see this a lot in our community as we have people who are like, I want to see some change quickly. I need to feel some change quickly because I am exhausted, right? And I'm losing hope. And so the reason we like this is because it's something that you can do today. You can practice it. You can probably do it for a week, and you are going to see a change at a minimum in yourself, and
Right.
most likely with the people that you spend the most time with, would you say?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I think it's our kids when they're really upset, when they're dysregulated, right? It really impacts us in that way. It's oh gosh, what is it called? You're as happiest as your least happy kid.
Yes.
You hear people talk about that, and it doesn't have to be that way, but it is definitely something I think you and I both experienced when we were going through it. And I had the double whammy because both kids were so unhappy at home and so dysregulated. I just felt we were constantly walking on eggshells in our house,
Yeah.
and it was really difficult.
Yeah, we see this, and I experienced this where my son's emotional state dictated my emotional state. I did not have the skills to separate those two things. So if he was highly dysregulated, aggressive, angry, whatever, I matched him toe to toe. Just that's exactly how I was.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I think happens is that because our kids get so dysregulated, they kind of have us wrapped around their finger to a degree where we are doing everything we can and we're running our household in order to not disturb them, send them off into a tizzy fit, cause a disruption. And that really impacts everybody in the family because now one person is holding the entire family hostage with their actions and their emotions. And that is a really difficult place to be, especially as a parent, because if that's where you are, you have lost your parental authority. And we're not saying like authoritarian, but your parental authority in the home. And that is a really scary place to be, you know?
Oh, I know. I mean,
I don't need to tell you.
you can't all see me nodding, if you're listening to this, but it absolutely does. And I would say I was definitely someone who ceded all my authority to my kids.
Yeah.
I was so afraid of the blowout. So that impacted boundary setting. And then here my husband be at work all day and I'd be home and he'd come home and he'd be the heavy. And then that kind of put a wedge between us because I just can't impart. Well, I think most people know if you're listening to this, you know what it's like because you might be living in that now. And it was really awful place to be.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize, I guess, how impactful it was on our home because it just kind of seemed normal too. We had done it for so long that this kind of seemed what we did in a normal state,
Yeah. It does kind of creep up on you. And then it comes to a point where you're like, wait a minute. Why? Why is the entire world spinning around this one human being who is all of, 16 years old or 23 years old or whatever it is? So that's what we're going to be talking about today is why it's so important to have emotional sturdiness, durability. I decided when I was sort of drafting this outline for us not to call it emotional regulation because I think that term gets overused. And what we see in our community is I do think yes, regulation is great, right? Like, oh, I can regulate my emotions, and you have to have a level of durability, stamina, sturdiness to plant your feet in a way that you can have a young person raging at you and not pick up the rope with them, right? To hold the boundary where my son was the master, and I know all of your kids are the same, the master of making me feel like, well, I mean, he didn't really do what I asked him to do, but now he's presenting it back to me in a way that makes me kind of feel like maybe I should give it, like maybe I should give him the money that I said I was going to give him, even though he didn't really do the thing. And you're just like, and so while emotional regulation, yes, of course, but we wanted to convey the fact that we understand how hard it is and that it really is more about this sturdiness and durability and the ability to deal with situations that most people don't have to deal with because we know y'all are SEAL team parents and you're out there doing the things that no parent has to do. So anyway, that's why we're calling it that, if you're wondering. But we thought we'd first just talk about how our emotional state is such a critical element of helping our kids. And sometimes I think that can get overlooked because we're like, I got to find the right therapist. I need to find the therapist who has a specialty in addiction and eating disorders and OCD or whatever. Like, we're looking for the unicorn therapist or the right program, or we are trying to craft the perfect set of boundaries or the perfect home contract, which we would call an agreement. And what we're not realizing is that if you want to make an impact quickly and in a very healthy way, your emotional regulation and sturdiness is probably what we would call like frontline to do on the to-do list, right?
Never forget because it impacts all those other things, right? When you don't believe in what you're saying, right, that comes through to your kids.
Yeah.
Right? They, you talk about Enzo being able to really turn things around or whatever that is. And my kids were brilliant at that.
Yeah.
And I realized today it's because they saw I don't want to call it weakness because I don't like that term, but
Right.
they saw maybe that I didn't have the confidence in what I was presenting myself, right?
Yeah.
And so it really was for me this big learning moment to realize, what do I need to do for myself? How do I calm those voices in my head? What do I need to do to get out? And for me, like I wasn't doing anything. I might have been exercising, but I'll tell you this every single time I showed up at Orange Theory, I would dedicate my workout to my kids.
Mm.
And I was thinking about them the entire time. I was thinking about, is this addiction? Is this really serious mental health? What is it?
Yeah.
And so I was constantly in my head about my kids' situation instead of thinking, I'm getting stronger, I'm clearing out my brain, I'm doing all of those things. I should have dedicated those workouts to me, right?
Right. Yeah.
But I did.
Yeah.
But that takes us a different focus, right? That we're talking about.
It does. It requires you to kind of step back a notch from
Yeah.
being right in the middle of the moment. And what we really love about this idea of emotional sturdiness is that it is 100% in your control, because we spend so much time in this experience not being in control of things. Like, we are not in control of whether they show up for work or not, or whether they show up for school or not, or whether they show up for court, whatever it is. Like, we are just not in charge of that. This is something that we are 100% in control of, and it has a huge impact on our kids. So it's kind of like low-hanging fruit. If you're looking for something where you're saying, I have got to make a change, this is one of those things that we would really recommend, because there's sort of another side to this, which is when we are not emotionally sturdy and regulated and stable and grounded, it adds this level of unpredictability for our kids. And their world is already incredibly unpredictable and unstable, as we know, right? They're not in a great place from a mental health standpoint. They're using substances, which adds all kinds of elements of risk to their day-to-day things. And when we are emotionally unstable, like you said, like, I don't like what's going to happen when I approach my mom. That means we're just adding to an already unstable situation. So that's kind of the flip side of this is, yes, this is really good for you. It's really good to get in touch. And we're going to talk a little bit about how you can start to work on this. But just know that the reason why this work that you can do on yourself is so powerful is because it's going to truly impact your child. And I think we've all had a situation. I had a boss at one time that was, I would say, pretty emotionally unstable. Like, I never knew who she was going to be when I went into her office. And it was so stressful. Even if it was just something kind of benign that I was walking into her office to talk about, I was always kind of like taking the temperature, right? Like, have I seen her interact with other people today? And has she had lunch yet? I mean, I would literally like time my interactions with her after lunch, because I was like, okay, I don't want to hit her when she's hungry. She was a smoker. This is a long time ago, like when you could smoke in your office. But that is a terrible place to be when you are like, I was fine, but I knew that she might not be fine. And
I was just going to say, I love that you brought that up, Brenda, because truly, like, we can't always, as parents, I mean, it's really hard when you're in the thick of it with your kids. It's really hard sometimes to put ourselves in our kids' shoes, right? Because whatever we bring to the situation with mental health and substance use, right? Our history kind of can really taint how we get in their shoes, right? So it's a very difficult thing to do,
yeah,
is what I'm trying to say. But you bringing up the situation with your boss, I think is something that many of us can identify with and resonate with. Maybe you've had a friend where you've had to talk about a really awkward situation with or something else, and you really think about those situations and think, how is this person going to receive me when I come up? I might be okay with it, but I'm not really sure how they're going to receive me. So that does bring up so much emotion around it, and makes you feel like, I'm not sure I even really want to go to this person. And then of course maybe the situation with the person that you worked with worked out, and it feels so good to know that, oh wow, that really turned out okay, and you hope that improves over time, right? So
Yeah.
in the long way of saying, that's what we're trying to get to, that space ourselves, so our kids feel they can come to us in a place they know what to expect when they come to us, I guess.
Right. And we just want to recognize that we know how hard that is because
Mhm.
everybody comes at this from their own experience. So
Right.
we have the honor, we consider it a sacred honor of kind of walking this journey with so many of our members in the community. And so we see what you are showing up with. You are showing up with potential abuse in your past, a parent who had a substance use disorder, just an unsafe home in general, or the loss of a sibling or the loss of a parent, right? There's just so many things that
Right.
you bring in your luggage of life. And then when your kiddo starts going off the rails and is at risk and is unhealthy, your luggage is going to impact how you experience that. And so, of course, it's going to be hard to show up calm, cool, collected, sturdy, and stable if you're
Yeah.
coming at this with a lot of trauma of your own. And so that's why we always, if at all possible, would love for people to be working with a therapist. In addition to, like in our community, we're not doing that one-on-one therapy with you as far as like going back in your past and looking at why am I responding in this way? And maybe looking at your attachment style. That is work that you need to do with your own therapist. We can help you then take that information and say, okay, if you're coming at this with anxious attachment as sort of your attachment profile, here's what that could look like in how you respond. But we just want to recognize that we're not over here like Pollyanna going, oh, just be calm. Just be calm. You
Can
know?
you imagine? So, oh my gosh, I would laugh you out the door if you'd come to me 10
Yes.
years ago, 11 years ago.
It's
Yeah, okay.
not that simple, not that simple. So we know that it takes work.
Yeah,
We are responsible for managing our emotional responses.
yeah,
And so it might mean that you have to do some really uncomfortable work to get to a place where you can be that thoughtful, regulated, sturdy person because it's not natural to be calm, cool, and collected when your kid is struggling. It's just not. So
yeah.
the other thing I think that we see too that takes work to be able to have this kind of more sturdy response is to at least have some level of sync with your co-parent, whether that's a spouse, a partner, an ex, whoever it is, because that alone can cause a lot of dysregulation.
Really can.
Yeah, it's, if your kid goes to their other parent's home and it's a completely different set of rules or boundaries or whatever, that is super confusing and stressful. So that's another situation that requires much work.
Boy, that's like, I don't know, SEAL teams have levels, but that really does require even a higher level of parenting, because we also recognize that there are some situations that you just can't be in sync with a co-parent.
Yeah.
And that can be really, really tough.
Yeah.
So give yourself a lot of grace there. And again, just know that doing that difficult work will pay off in the end, just for yourself and everything else, because this is all so difficult. But really, we've talked before on the podcast how it affects your mental health, but also your physical health. And I think we both went through that too. So
Yeah.
we don't say any of this lightly, but mainly from experience because we really went down some really tough roads to get to a different place. So,
Yep. Yep. Just know that if you are anxious, if you are frustrated, if all the things that you are, that truly is contagious. And so the more you can do to get to a place where, you're not going to be like I was with my former boss, like tiptoeing around going, ooh, like, what's it going to be today? Who am I going to get when I walk through the door? We just don't want to burden our kids with that, right? They're already dealing with so much. So, what does becoming emotionally sturdy look like? What did that look like for you? Like, what was your journey toward getting more sturdy in your emotional responses?
you know, a few things. I had to really learn what a boundary was, honestly. I had to learn that boundaries were for me and not controlling my kids. I really didn't know what those were. So that was one thing. And recognizing the importance of my own care,
Mm,
you know, but it really started with boundaries. So I would say that I prioritized myself. I prioritized if I had scheduled a walk with a friend or a coffee or something like that, and there was a mini little thing going on with my kids, but it could have waited. I prioritized that. I said, okay, I'll be there in an hour or whatever that is. And so just getting right with myself and spending that time. I also have to say that I really got great at questioning a lot of the things that were going on when I started to spiral or get into things. I had to ask myself, is this true? And if
mm,
it is true, do I have control over it?
mhm.
And do I need to sit here, spiraling about it? Or can I just, that's usually my sign when things are kind of getting a little off, that my practices aren't where they should be. I have a pretty strong faith practice where I use a lot of prayer. I bookend my days in the morning and the evening with prayer and gratitude. And I noticed just even a couple weeks ago that practice was off. My physical movement was off because I had gotten sick. And so I wasn't able to do the things I did. And so my brain started to spiral for no reason at all, really.
Right.
Like, and it was crazy. So I have to really be good about asking myself, getting in my brain again, but for me, not for anyone else.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
about you?
I would say this is going to sound a little weird, but I would say that what really helped me was some education about what addiction really is. Because
Oh,
when I read Beyond Addiction, and up until that point, I was just completely baffled about how this could have happened. It just made no sense to me. And so I felt more regulated when I understood what was going on in my kid's body. So that was super helpful. And then I think the other thing that really helped me was just realizing that just because something had happened didn't mean I had to respond to it at that time.
right.
And it gave me a chance to cool down, to ask myself some questions. And we just did 2 self-coaching question episodes. We'll put a link in the show notes that I didn't have obviously at the time, but I did know enough to step away and say, okay, this probably is not the time for me to deal with this. Let me cool down, let him cool down, and then come back and approach it. So I would say those things helped me not be so crazy reactive. And I don't know that I was ever really like a stable, like I think my son probably never knew what he was coming home to. I never really got that under control. Again, I did not learn any of this until after he was much better. So he survived and is thriving despite me. But I do remember feeling a little bit more regulated after I learned, just like got a little book smart.
Mhm.
Beyond Addiction. We'll put a link in the show notes. Hands down, the one book that we would
Oh my gosh.
recommend you
Yes.
reading. And
The
then,
workbook, and the workbook is really good.
and the
Get them both.
workbook. We will put
Yeah.
links in
Yeah.
the show notes to both of those. So I think those probably were the ones just with absolutely zero help that I would say did help me. But if you're wanting to come up with some things, we would obviously, like Cathy said, say like get on top of your own mental and physical health. People seem to think that that is a nice to have, or like I will do that when dot dot dot
Yeah.
my kid goes to treatment. My kid is 1 month sober. My kid is 1 year sober. You know, whatever it is, we tend to put that out in the future. That will make a world of difference, just prioritizing your physical health and your mental health. And again, if you can get connected with a therapist, it doesn't have to be forever, but find ways to deal with that so that you're not bringing that to the table with them.
Yeah.
Really finding ways to deal with your past issues. If that's something that you are bringing a lot of trauma and pain, EMDR is great for that. We haven't talked about brain spotting very much, but I was actually just with some folks this past weekend, and there was a therapist and she was talking about brain spotting. And there's just some really incredibly effective and great tools out there from a therapeutic standpoint that you can tap into.
Neurofeedback,
Neurofeedback.
amazing cognitive behavioral therapy. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so much out there. It's incredible, all the resources. And when you look, you will find them, especially on the trauma side. There's so much that is there.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you have to relive all that trauma, by the way. So if you're
Right.
really holding back because your history holds a lot of trauma, and we understand that fear around it, just know that these modalities that are there are successful for a reason, and they don't necessarily mean that you've got to really relive all of that, and
Right.
it's super helpful because it impacts your brain, right? All this trauma that you've gone through does impact our brain, and our brain, it's stored in our cells and everything else. So and that's a whole other episode, obviously.
Yeah, that is. But I'm glad that you said that because I think people do think, "Oh, man, I'm just not ready to go back and relive all of that." And
Yeah.
even with EMDR, yes, you do kind of go into a memory or situation, but the way that you do it is not scary. It's not like you're reliving that. And sometimes I think people also don't know that there is way more than just talk therapy. So somatic practices, equine therapy, like there's so many different ways now that if you haven't looked into it for a while, just maybe go to Psychology Today or whatever and start looking at what options there are, because there's a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think all of this starts with an awareness of your dysregulation. Because if you're not aware that you are bringing like topsy-turvy energy to a room, then it's kind of hard to know that you need to change anything. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, for sure.
I remember going to work when all of this was going on in the background, and I would show up at work and they must have thought I was just crazy because I had no tools to regulate my own stress and distress. And so I just like dumped everything on the table and it was not pretty. So I think there is just a level of awareness to sort of do a body scan and see like, where is this showing up in me? Is it in my chest? Do my hands get tingly? Does my head start throbbing? Does my throat get tight? Like, just think about, where do I feel this in my body when I'm either scared or when I have to confront something, or if I need to make a decision or a request, or I need to say, no, you didn't do the thing, so therefore I am not going to pay you. I'm thinking of a specific situation where it ends up.
You might as well tell the situation.
I know. It's just so embarrassing. No, it's so embarrassing. Enzo said, of course, he was wanting money. This is when he was probably 15 or so. And I was so dumb. I installed black carpet in the stairs that went down to our basement, thinking that that would hide whatever. Well, little did I realize that black carpet just shows everything. And, anything that isn't black, basically. So anyway, the stairs were always just a mess. And so he kind of knew that this was a place where he might be able to like swoop in. And so he offered to vacuum the stairs for $10.
Okay.
So, I'm like, okay, fine. And I knew I shouldn't have said fine. I knew I should have said no, but I didn't want to deal with the backlash. So I said, okay, fine, I'll pay you $10 to vacuum the stairs. And he kind of vacuumed the stairs. Not really. I would say they were like 30% vacuumed. And so then he gets done and he comes up, and of course the vacuum is still sitting at the bottom of the stairs. The cord is all wound around everything. And he's like, okay, where's my $10? And I so just wanted to say, no, this is not a job well done.
Yeah.
It's not complete. The vacuum is still sitting out. I asked you to put it away, right? Like all the things. But what did I do?
You wanted to avoid any conflict, so you said, here's your $10. Get out of the house.
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Yes.
That is what I did.
Get that. We understand that.
Because I was not emotionally sturdy. I was just at the whim of his emotions.
Yeah.
So anyway, full confession, that's what we're talking about.
Maybe we should name the podcast Full Confession.
Yes, we should. We definitely should. So anyway, start with that awareness. Just know that it's going to show up in your body. And then that is your telltale sign to start, like have some practices in your back pocket that you can go to, whether that's movement or the right food or some water or calling a friend, or if you're in the stream, tap into your friends in the stream or whatever.
Yeah. That's so good, because I think that the breathing, I remember you talking about years ago. And that is also a quick tell for me that I may feel like, well, I don't think I'm really feeling dysregulated right now. And then you realize when you start breathing and doing some really intentional deep breathing, in for 4, out for 4, box breathing, whatever sounds good. If you've never done anything, just start with intentional breathing and counting as you breathe in and releasing. If you feel better after that, doing maybe 10 breaths, that is your sign that things were probably not where you thought they were before. I mean, because I think sometimes we live in such a high state of emotional unsturdiness, right? That feels so normal, like we said earlier. So I love the idea of having those practices. They really make a difference.
It really does. And you have to practice them because it won't come naturally. So just practice in low stakes situations where maybe you get really agitated when you drive at other drivers, like my husband, who just can't seem to imagine why anybody would drive the way they do. And use kind of those low stakes situations to practice some of this stuff so that when it comes to your kiddo and you're in one of those high stakes situations, you're like, I got this. I know how to do this. I can handle the situation. I can handle whatever reaction I'm going to get as long as it's not a safety situation. And sometimes, like in the moment, it might be a pause. Like I said, when I would realize that there's no expiration date on when to deal with it, like I had time. It may require your lip clip, depends on the situation. It may not, but it may. And I think you can be really creative about it too. Sometimes people love to journal about stuff, or they like to sing, or they like to hop on their bike, or this can look a lot of different ways. This isn't like some crazy psychological game that you have to play with yourself. It's just whatever gets you into a state where you feel more calm, you're able to think more clearly. Because I don't know about you, but when I get into this kind of agitated state, I get immediate brain fog and I cannot get my words out. I can't think straight. I can't, I just feel dysfunctional. Like I don't know what I'm doing. And that's the worst feeling ever when you're trying to deal with something serious,
Yeah, the worst. And it's so true. And for me, one thing I do when I do feel that way, I get off all my screens because they just seem to aggravate it. I don't know. I've become really, and maybe it's just because we spend so much time on our screens these days anyway, but I noticed that if I can step away and just put my phone down, go for a walk, and just really just not have anything, I feel so much better. I guess I could just say that just stepping away from the screens helps my anxiety and everything else. But I hear you on the brain fog. Oh my gosh. And if you're a menopausal woman or premenopausal, you're already dealing with that. So you feel like you've got no brain cells left. So
Ye-
just take care of yourself when it comes to that.
Yes, yes. So anyway, hopefully this has been helpful. I think the other thing just to remember is in the moment, think of the bigger goal, like play the long game, because it's really easy to get caught up in the moment, right? Of the vacuuming of the stairs
For sure.
and taking that longer view of like, yes, I may have to make an unpopular decision right now. And
Yeah.
he's going to be pissed off and whatever, right? Like, and I can deal with that because I have been spending time regulating myself. So if you can just slow down enough to play that long game, kind of, we talk about getting up in the balcony seats, like take a few steps back, go up to the balcony seats, look down at the situation and say, can I make a decision that is going to be better for the long term versus whatever is going to make things a little bit less painful right now? That's probably the better decision. And it's hard. It's so hard
It's
to do.
hard. It's so hard to do. Join us in the stream because you will have so much support as you're going through this because it feels very isolating to do this. And I promise you, it just helps so much to have your community around you saying you can do this and it will make a big difference in the long run, just to just go ahead and do it.
All right. Well, lovely talking. Anything else you want to
Oh,
share before we jump off?
gosh. No, just hoping everybody has a kind of a calmer end of the summer. We know school's coming sooner than we think. And so, really, if you've been hesitating on trying out the stream, just know you've got 2 weeks and we'd love to just show you around. And again, it's a no cost way to see if this is something that fits for you. So, we hope you come over
Yeah.
and join it.
hopestreamcommunity.org/try, TRY. We'll get you hooked up with that great offer. And yeah, we'll see you soon.
Good seeing you, Brenda.
Bye. Okay, my friend, I am so glad that you were here with me today. Do you want the resources from this episode? If you do, head to hopestreamcommunity.org, click podcast, and you will find this episode along with 300 or so others and every link that we mention. And if you haven't tried it yet, we offer a free 2-week trial of our online community for moms, The Stream. No credit card needed, no commitment. Just go to hopestreamcommunity.org/try and we can get you set up with a free 2-week membership. And if this is your first time here, or if this whole approach feels new and uncomfortable, that is normal. You can grab a free ebook I wrote called Worried Sick. It will help you start seeing new ways to respond to your child and find new ways to approach this whole situation that feels very confusing. You can find that at hopestreamcommunity.org/worried. You, my friend, are an elite level parent. You are doing an incredible job. You do things most parents never have to do. And I am so honored to be walking this path with you. Take ridiculously good care of yourself, and I will meet you right back here next week.